Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Glenorchy City Council meeting on this night, Monday, the 28th of June, 2021. I'd like to start by acknowledging that we meet today on the land of the Muwanina people and acknowledge and pay respect to Tasmania's Aboriginal community as the traditional owners and ongoing custodians of this land on which we meet, and pay respect to elders past, present and emerging. Joining me via Zoom tonight, I have Alderman Jan Dunsby, Alderman Kelly Sims, Alderman Gay Richardson, Alderman Peter Bull, Alderman Simon Fraser. We have apologies from Alderman Angela Ryan and Alderman Melissa Carlton, and Alderman Stephen King is having some technical difficulties and will join us very soon. We do apologise for the late start this evening. We've all had a few, or some of us, many of us have had a few technical difficulties in getting started via Zoom. We do appreciate you joining us on our live stream via Facebook this evening, and we look forward to welcoming members of the public back to our next meeting in July. So that was item 1 done, apologies. Item 2, confirmation of the minutes of the open meeting. Do I have someone to move that the minutes of the council meeting held on 31st of May be confirmed? And before that, I do note that our agenda does state that the motion is to approve both the minutes of the ordinary meeting on 31st of May and the special meeting on 21st of June. However, we haven't quite finalised those special council meeting minutes from our meeting last Monday yet. So the motion will simply be that someone moves that the minutes of the council meeting held on 31st of May be confirmed. Do I have someone to move? Alderman Bull moved. Someone to second?
Alderman Fraser.
Alderman Dunsby got in just before you, Alderman Fraser, but thank you, Alderman Dunsby. Alderman Bull.
No, nothing to add, thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion of the item? I'll put it to the vote. Or if you're in favour of the minutes, please raise your hand. That is carried. Moving on to item 3, announcements by the chair. There are no announcements this evening. Item 4, pecuniary interest notification. I will declare an interest in item 20, which is the item in relation to the tender for Edie Street in our closed council item. I don't have a pecuniary interest, but my husband is involved in the cricket club that has an interest in the construction project there. So I will declare an interest in that item, and I will seek a motion that someone nominate another alderman to take over as chair of the meeting when we get to that item. Any other pecuniary interests notifications from aldermen this evening? No. Okay, moving on to item 5, response to previous public questions taken on notice. There are none this evening in our agenda. Moving on to item 6, which is public question time. Obviously, we don't have members of the public participating in our meeting, but we did have some questions on notice tabled, one by Mrs. Janice Bryan in relation to the YMCA funding for the YMCA facility and the operation of the Barossa Wellness Centre, and there's an answer provided there in the minutes related to both of those items. That obviously the YMCA funding, as explained in the minutes, is a matter for the YMCA, between the YMCA and the federal government, but council is offering some support to progress that matter. And in terms of the Barossa Wellness Centre, it's a question that needs to be directed to OneCare as the owner of that facility. Now, another question on notice from Mr. Eddie Steenbergen in relation to the disposal of land schedule that council has been undertaking in recent times, and there is information on the properties, the 7 properties that council has disposed of by way of sale in the agenda papers as well. Moving on to item 7, petitions, deputations. General Manager, are there any petitions or deputations this evening?
No, there are not, Acting Mayor.
Thank you. Moving on then to item 8, announcements by the Mayor. We have a recommendation to receive the announcements about the activities of myself, Acting Mayor Bette Thomas, during the period 25th of May to 21st of June. Do I have someone to move this recommendation? Moved, Alderman Richardson. Someone to second?
Alderman Fraser.
Alderman Fraser, thank you. Alderman Richardson.
No, nothing further to add to that.
Any discussion of the item? Alderman Dunsby.
Yes, I wonder if you could just give us an understanding of your meeting with the CEO of the Royal Agricultural Society of Tasmania on the 8th of June.
Sure. So I met with the CEO of the Royal Agricultural Society of Tasmania on the 8th of June to hear about the activities of RAST. It was sort of a meet and greet in my role as acting mayor and making sure I maintained the relationship between council and the CEO during this, what is somewhat of a caretaker transition time, given there are significant development plans that the Royal Agricultural Society of Tasmania has in place and secured significant funding from the state government through the election. So it was really just a meet and greet and an update on the activities of RAST.
Thank you. And subsequently, your teleconference with Andrew Wilkie?
Yes, so thank you, Alderman Dunsby. My teleconference with Andrew Wilkie, independent federal member for Clark, was to discuss progress on the federal funding projects that council, that Mr Wilkie secured funding for back in the 2018 federal election. So it was really just, again, maintaining the relationship between council and Mr Wilkie and giving him an update on progress towards those projects.
Thank you, Acting Mayor.
No problem. Any further questions or discussion of the item? No? We'll go back to the mover, Alderman Richardson.
Happy to go to the vote.
Thank you, Alderman Richardson. Please raise your hand to indicate if you are for the recommendation. That is carried. Moving on to item 9, Community Strategy 2021 to 2030. We have a recommendation for that we authorise the release of the draft Community Strategy 2021-2030 for public comment during July, and note that it will be presented to Council for enable consideration for adoption in August. Do I have someone to move this recommendation?
So moved.
Moved Alderman Fraser. Someone to second? Alderman Richardson. Alderman Fraser.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. So look, we've had the opportunity to workshop this. We've had 2 workshops on the community strategy, and we've had the opportunity to ask a lot of questions around why it's needed and what it hopes to achieve. You know, I suspect probably to the casual council observer, it must sometimes seem that the creation of plans and strategies is all that we discuss in council meetings, and I certainly hope that after the deluge of plans and strategies we've created over the past 3.5 years, that we're now getting to a point where the focus and resources invested in their creation shifts towards implementing and reporting on them. But of course, as the saying goes, if you don't plan, then plan to fail. And I might add that this strategy is slightly different in that it's been created by council officers as opposed to outside consultants, and it draws from findings of existing research and community feedback to create a set of priorities that the council can use to report on activities from right across the council rather than just the communities department. In my view, that's a good thing. You know, anything that breaks down silos between council departments and encourages collaboration and work towards shared goals is a good thing in my opinion. And most importantly, I would hope that it will deliver better outcomes for our residents. I also like the simplicity of the results-based accountability framework that you'll see is mentioned in the agenda. You know, I think that's a really simple and direct, straightforward framework to be able to report back on the achievement against the goals and strategies set out in our plans. But I'll be very interested, and I certainly encourage any interested Glenorchy residents to read through the strategy and provide the council some feedback so that we can confirm that council officers are on the right track with this.
Thank you, Alderman Fraser. Any further discussion of the item?
Alderman Sims.
Alderman Sims.
Through the Mayor. I'd just like to thank the staff for all the work that they've put into this, and I'm sure that's on behalf of the entire strategic team and leadership who've been guiding it. And just for the community's sake, just to reiterate the 4 priority outcomes, because I know that everybody won't get the chance to read through everything and have a clear understanding on what we'll be focusing on in the next few years. So accessibility in diversity, safety, healthy, so looking at ensuring that we're strongly connected as a community and also thriving, education and opportunity and around learning for life. So that's continuing that learning after school as well, and engaging in keeping up with modern practice and keeping your brain engaged. Also, I really appreciate the way that the Local Government Act was referred to, and these are some functions that I draw on quite a lot in our work. So providing for the health and safety and welfare of the community, representing the interests of the community, and providing for the peace, order and good governance of the area. And just important to note that it's going out to public comment now, and it will be coming back to council in August. So it's really important that you have a say. Have a look at even just the areas that impact you, that interest you, that you're passionate about. And even if you just have a say on those areas, if everyone did that, we'll have a really good grasp on what's important to you and how we can incorporate that into the final report and vote in that in August. So thanks to the staff. Cheers.
Thank you, Alderman Sims. Any further discussion of the item? No? I have a question, if I may, perhaps to the Director of Community Development, David Ronaldson. The report refers to quite extensive community consultation that has been undertaken to develop the strategy, and it does include a note there about feedback from the Collinsvale community yarn held in May 2021. Along with feedback from previous yarns in Glenorchy and Claremont as well. So I'm just wondering, that was certainly a very good turnout at the Collinsvale community yarn in particular. I'm just wondering if we can have an update on if we have a summary of the key outcomes or key feedback provided at that yarn, and what we'll be doing going forward with that, and also whether we have plans ahead for the future yarns.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. Terrific question. Firstly, if I take the feedback from the first three yarns that we've had, so Collinsvale, Glenorchy and Claremont, your question is very timely because the responses to those three community yarns at this present time are with directors to ensure we have responded and captured the comments from community and are able to action those into either the ideas that have been brought forward by community or to confirm there are some of those things we're already doing. So that is currently with directors with the intent of reporting back to our community via our website in early July. Obviously those, the input that community members have made in all three of those yarns have been included into the strategy comments that you see tonight that Council is considering. As far as going forward, you'll recall Council made a decision well before COVID, which seems like years ago now, that we would trial the community yarn concept for 2 years. And over that time, we at that time talked about running 4 community yarns per year and locating them around the municipality. COVID aside, we're now planning the next community yarn is with the Indigenous community, and the dates aren't locked in yet, but we're working on that as we speak. So the intent, Acting Mayor, to answer the question fully is each of those community yarns results will be up on the website. As I said, the first 3 shortly in July, and the next one's being planned as we speak at the moment.
Fantastic, thank you. And is there a view then to going forward, perhaps holding those yarns in other suburbs? Like we went to Collinsvale specifically, so I've had people ask me over recent weeks, you know, is there plans to hold one in Claremont, for example, and then maybe Moona and Lutana? Like, is that sort of the track? I know you mentioned the trial, but is that sort of the track we're headed down?
Yes, is the short answer. Of course, we had our first one in Claremont, so it is trying to move around the full municipality as we committed to the first time for 4 yarns per year. So without preempting where we might go next, Moona in that direction might be a a next opportunity. Certainly, we've also had requests from young people in our community to hold one specifically for young people. So there's a couple of requests that we're juggling with at the moment, but as I said, the very next one we're planning at the moment is with the Indigenous community.
Thank you, Director. Any further discussion of the item? No, I'd like to speak briefly to the recommendation and to the strategy. I also reiterate the comments made by Alderman Fraser and Alderman Sims in relation to encouraging the community to provide us with your feedback. This strategy, council officers have spent quite significant time on looking at our broader Glenorchy community plan, which is our sort of overarching strategic document that sets out our vision for how we support our community, and also the existing strategies we have. So really the aim I see of this strategy is to bring together the range of, we have quite a number of strategies in our community development area at the moment. So the aim is to bring them together under the one banner, if you like, to look at how we can prioritise our resources most effectively for our community. So as well as providing feedback on the high-level goals and objectives that are outlined under the 4 priority areas that Alderman Sims named previously, I'm really keen to hear the community's feedback on what actions that they would like to see on the ground. What are the key things that you'd like to see council deliver in programs and services in the community development space that you think can really make a difference in those 4 priority areas? So that's certainly what I'll be encouraging when the consultation period opens up over the next couple of weeks. So I'm supportive of releasing the community strategy for the draft for public comment. I look forward to the feedback, and I'm really keen at that next level to look at what actions we can implement, knowing that we can't be everything to everyone. And that's really one of the aims of developing this is to really be clear about how we can best support our community with our community development resources that we have, because it's all very valuable resources that comes from our ratepayer dollar, and we must make the best use of it to make sure we are improving outcomes in the areas of community safety, health and wellbeing, education, and accessibility and inclusion in our community. So I'm happy to support the recommendation. Go back to the mover, Alderman Fraser.
No, nothing further, thank you.
Nothing further, we'll put it to the vote. Please raise your hand to indicate if you're for the recommendations. That is carried unanimously. Moving on to item 10, which is Multicultural Hub review. We have a recommendation, 3 recommendations before us in relation to the external review of the Multicultural Hub and the commitment to the hub going forward. Do I have someone to move these recommendations?
So moved.
Alderman Fraser, someone to second? Alderman Richardson. Alderman Fraser.
Thank you. So I think most people are quite familiar with the fact that Glenorchy City is one of the most multicultural municipalities in Tasmania, and I know that we all want people of different ethnic and cultural backgrounds to feel welcome and at home in our city, and it's clear from the results of the report that we've had presented to us here that the Multicultural Hub has played a significant role in making people feel welcome here, which is a great thing. I've noted the main recommendations from the consultant who conducted this review, and it is quite clear that the venue in Hopkins Street, Moona, is not ideal as a location for the hub, and if an alternative space can be found, or even if someone in the community listening in can make more suitable spaces available, I think that would be a great outcome. Financially speaking, I think this is another example of the state government outsourcing a service to local government, which further depletes council resources. And yes, they do provide some funding, but the council still has to provide significant in-kind support. We have to do building maintenance. We have to forego rental income on an asset that's, according to this report, worth about $630,000. And, following on from my comments last week in the special council meeting, I think this is the type of program that is funded and supported by council that is also acknowledged in the report is not widely known or understood by most people in our community. And in fact, only 44 responses were received in the survey distributed as part of this review, which is of course a tiny proportion of the people for the resources that go into this area. So I really think that achieving a fully self-sustainable model for this hub is urgent, and I think it needs to be achieved within the next 2 years.
Thank you, Alderman Fraser. Any further discussion of the item? Alderman Richardson.
No, I think Alderman Fraser's covered everything I intended to say. I just would like to take this opportunity to thank the Multicultural Council of Tasmania, who have been operating the hub for the last 4 years. So just thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Richardson. Any further discussion of the item? Alderman Sims.
I just had a question.
Sure.
Just in regards to the in-kind costs with council facilitating the operation, and in looking at our responsibility as well in partnership approach with the council. So the hub should continue to be delivered by a community-based not-for-profit entity within a partnership approach with council. So that's part of our obligation under the principles we spoke before in the previous motion around accessibility and things like that. And I think it's important to probably look at the reflection of the engagement from 44 odd people and look at the demographic you're talking about. A lot of these people are actually struggling to communicate and access these type of opportunities. A lot of them wouldn't even know they're there. So I think it's important that we reflect on our processes and strategies for gathering this information and be supporting this community a lot more, because the state is supporting these people to move here and integrate, and our area is one of the most multicultural areas in Tasmania, and we've acknowledged all of that, but I think we're missing a bit of a link here around how we're supporting that as a community as well. I know that we've got rates, roads and rubbish. I think most people realise now that the breadth of our work and scope has widened a lot more than that. We have to look after communities, look after environment, and consider a whole lot of things at once. So my question is, we're looking at the in-kind support from council over 4 years is $54,641. Is that correct?
Director?
Thank you. Through you, Acting Mayor. Sorry, Alderman Sims, I'm not quite sure where you've got that figure from. If you could just explain.
So if you jump to page 22 on the agenda.
Thank you. So,
So this is the for the future model. This is what we're looking at supplying.
So, sorry, through you, Acting Mayor, the Alderman's referring to the second last dot point on page 22. That's an estimate, Alderman Sims, and it's a best we could do given there are a number of staff involved in maintenance, supporting the operations of the provider at the moment, so MCOT. So one of our staff is regularly working with MCOT to ensure that they are achieving the outcomes it has outlined in the funding agreement. So the 4,000 is the closest figure we've got without billing people every 3 minutes for their time.
Yeah, understandable.
That's the question.
Thank you, that does. And just to clarify, it's we're foregoing 25,000 per year in rent. Yeah. And that's our contribution to the Multicultural Hub at this time annually. Oh, sorry, one of them was for 4 years, wasn't it? So that's
my answer through you, Acting Mayor. The original agreement was for 4 years, which is coming to the end of its time at the moment. That was $50,000 per year from the state government and council's officers' time in supporting some maintenance within the building as well. The $25,000 per annum you refer to is the approximate figure that MCOT has been raising in hiring the facility out. So in supporting those newly arrived communities in using the building, but also other users when there is downtime in the building, they've also hired the building to other users, so other multicultural communities, and there's been a few business conferences in there as well. So it's an approximate 25,000 is approximately what MCOT have been hiring per year. And it's worth noting at the time prior to going into this arrangement, you'd be familiar that the Moona Arts Centre was in the building up until the new Moona Arts Centre opened in 2015. Council hired the building from approximately the middle of 2015 through to 2017 when this arrangement was put in place, and the hall was, would be fair to say, underutilised at the time. So since we've had this arrangement in place from 2017, the hall has increased its usage during that period, and that approximately $25,000 gives you the best guesstimate we can get at this time.
Great, thank you. And just wondering what steps we're taking at the moment to consider other opportunities for council-owned spaces and facilities that could better suit the needs for the hub.
Through you, Acting Mayor, thank you, Alderman Sims. Part of the funding from the state government, or the majority of the funding from the state government, is to employ a community development worker that MCOT is the employer of. One of the main roles of that worker is to ensure that newly arrived communities firstly have a space together, which is at the hub at the moment, but also develop themselves to the point where they can look around for other venues, either within our city or within the broader Hobart area, to access other facilities. So the Multicultural Hub has been designed as a transitional space for newly arrived communities to get on their feet, be able to organise themselves, and then look at other venues that might better suit their needs going forward. So a range of those are existing council facilities, but there's also other facilities in private hands. The consultant, in looking through the current needs of the existing facility, has identified a couple of obvious building maintenance issues that could be improved to make the current facility better. And that's what those comments refer to.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Anything further, Alderman Sims?
No, I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Dunsby.
Just a question for you back to the Director. Of the 44 responses, were they all individual responses, or were some of them organisational responses that may reflect a bigger part of the community?
Thank you, Alderman Dunsby. Through you, Acting Mayor. Yes, you're correct, Alderman Dunsby. So a number of them were individuals, but a number of them also were individuals representing some of those communities that we talked about. So they put in a single response as opposed to a multitude of responses. So there's a mixture within that 44.
Thank you.
Anything further, Alderman Dunsby? Any further discussion of the item? I note that Alderman King has joined our meeting. Welcome, Alderman King. As you may have gathered, we're up to item 10, Multicultural Hub Review.
I did gather that, and I'm up to my third device trying to attach myself. So anyway, I'm here.
Welcome. Well done for your persistence.
It's great having adult children that can help over the phone. So thank you.
Good. Okay, any further discussion of the item? I have a question, and thank you, my fellow aldermen have answered some of my questions around the foregone revenue and the in-kind operating cost. We currently have an agreement with the Multicultural Organisation of Tasmania, or MCOT as it's also known, which I gather goes to the 30th of June. If we approve these recommendations tonight, we'll be undertaking a procurement process to seek a community-based not-for-profit provider to operate the hub for a further 2 years until June 2023. So can we just be advised of what conversations have happened with MCOT, given that there is going to be that period of uncertainty, and whether their current lease has been extended?
Thank you, Acting Mayor. An excellent question. The current arrangement with MCOT goes to the end of August 2021, and that's reflective of the funding agreement with the state government. So where are we? A month and a half away from the end of that agreement. To address MCOT directly, MCOT have been very clear from the very commencement of the arrangement that it is a 4-year agreement. We reiterated that with the new MCOT board over the last 18 months, so they're very clearly aware of what the arrangement is. And as we've said before, officers work directly with the MCOT CEO and the community development worker in the space, and the MCOT CEO has been fully briefed on the timelines that were on the effect of or the end of the current agreement and where we might be going in the future. So I'm confident that MCOT are fully aware of the situation they find themselves in. They are, of course, well placed to renew the lease, but as it is public money, we need to go out to a full and clear and transparent process to engage for the next 2 years.
Thank you. There's no further discussion of the item. Then we have 3 recommendations before us. I'll go back to the mover, Alderman Fraser.
Thank you, Mayor. Actually, I do have just a few comments to add. I'm going to use this opportunity to my little soapbox to say a few things about multiculturalism. Look, I feel fairly uniquely qualified, I suppose, to speak on these issues because I am part of a multicultural family, and my first comment really is that the context in which the word multicultural is used does bug me a little bit from time to time. In my view, multiculturalism should be about people embracing one shared culture that is being continually enriched by the cultural practices of people that choose to come and live here in Tasmania and Australia. I was very fortunate actually several years ago, it might have been in the first 2018, down at the Hub actually, I was privileged to hear a speech from Australia's first Senator of African Heritage, actually Lucy Gashui, her name was, and she describes multiculturalism with a beautiful metaphor, using the metaphor analogy, a clear jar full of water that slowly changes colour as different coloured pigments are added to it. And what she meant by that is that true multiculturalism is about merging different cultures together rather than having separate cultural groups living side by side, but not really sharing any part of their cultural life. And, unfortunately, in my view, most of the activities that have been conducted at the Hub over the last few years, not all, but most, seem to silo different cultural groups into their own exclusive cultural activities, which I think perpetuates their separateness actually from the broader community. It's obviously perfectly fine and understandable for people of different cultural groups to want to get together, and language groups, I should add, to want to get together and mix with people that share that cultural and language background. And I'm not criticising that at all. However, I think that given public money is funding this program, I think its core mission should be to bring different ethnic and cultural groups together, including native-born Tasmanians, such as myself, and deliver programs that work towards a shared understanding of what it means to be a Tasmanian and what it means to be an Australian in the 21st century. And I hope that this goal can be addressed with the, perhaps during the procurement process with the next provider. I think that would be a great outcome for our community.
Thank you, Alderman Fraser. I'll put the recommendations to the vote. So if please raise your hand to indicate if you're for all the recommendations. That is carried unanimously. Moving on now to item 11, Marine and Innovation Master Plan. We have recommendations, 2 recommendations that we authorise the release of the draft Marine and Innovation Master Plan. Do I have someone to move these recommendations? Moved Alderman Richardson. Someone to second? Alderman Dunsby. Alderman Richardson.
Thank you. No, this master plan focused on Prince of Wales Bay and is designed to promote business investment, economic growth, improve transport and accessibility in the area. And I welcome it because it's a lovely little corner of our world. And so I'm happy to support the release of the draft document for community feedback and the findings to come back to council later this year. I will be interested to see what the development plans look like once they've been developed. I only have one question, and that is 4 weeks long enough for feedback from stakeholders on this master plan?
Thank you, Alderman Richardson. I will hand over to our Director of Strategy and Planning, Dr. Samantha Fox.
Yes, through you, Acting Mayor, and thank you for the question. Certainly the 4 weeks planned for the public consultation is following months and months of consultation with the key stakeholders in the area. So we've been engaging with INCAT and Life Raft Systems and all of the stakeholders there, including the state government, around the Prince of Wales Master Plan development. We've got a very comprehensive draft document, as you'll see there, and all of those stakeholders are very much on board with what's proposed in that document. We did want to take it out to public consultation to enable the general community to have a bit of a look and to tell us if we've missed anything or if there's anything that people would like focused on more than is currently in there. But absolutely, this is, as I said, the result of months and months of consultation with those stakeholders. So we do think that 4 weeks of public consultation is sufficient.
Okay, thank you. It'd be good to see the feedback. That'd be wonderful. Thank you.
Any further discussion of the item?
Yes.
Alderman Dunsby.
Thank you. I just think this really is a vision for the area, and seeing the partnership already between the industries and stakeholders working in the area and working with council to get to this point, I think is quite amazing. I'd just like to flag to the public, though, in the consultations, it didn't actually list that there'd been consultation with aldermen, and we have been consulted on this. We did have a briefing on it and went through the report. And, you know, at that time, to see the different drivers for change that are there and the different directions that this can potentially take is really quite exciting. And I just look forward to the public having a look at that master plan, having their thoughts about it, giving us that feedback and seeing that we can actually progress this further. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Dunsby. Any further discussion? Alderman Sims.
Yeah, I think just in light of Alderman Dunsby's comment around stakeholders consulted, it does say Glenorchy City Council, so I presume they mean the strategic body or council holistically, perhaps, in regards to that. And I just wanted to also point out that consultation period that Alderman Richardson noted as well, around only being 4 weeks for the community. As much as we've already engaged with ourselves, the council, state growth and all of the industry and businesses in the area, I think it is just as important to give the community the opportunity to engage in their local precinct and area as well, especially when you look at the project objectives and outcomes around making lives better, you know, informing and encouraging improved transport, accessibility, walking, cycling, using your car, things like that, valuing the environment. The social outcomes that master plans like this and industries living in their neighbourhood is really important that we balance these now. And I think it is important as a strategic team, as aldermen, to realise that that's our job. If we're not happy with 4 weeks, then we strategically move a motion or make that very clear to our staff and GM now. That's our role. So I think it's important that we do think about those opportunities and understand our role and make those decisions when it counts and recognise that. Now's the time if we are not happy with that. And I think you made a good point. I don't think it is enough time. It's such a big project, a lot of people involved, a lot of industries involved. I think we do need a little bit more time, even double that, so we can get the message out for 4 weeks and then get the message back in for 4 weeks. But I just do want to celebrate the staff for all the work that they've done, and the aldermen. We've been working on this, I think, since we got elected in a few years ago. It's been a big battle, a lot of these big plans. It's a lot of work, thinking about the big picture on every different precinct and area. And I'm really, really pleased for the businesses. I feel like they've missed out and they've deserved this for such a long time. The history behind it, you know, it's so important. It's almost the heart and soul of Glenorchy in a way, that industry down there. And it's about time it's been celebrated down on the waterfront. It's got all of the great opportunities that we can present, you know, environmentally as well as industrially. So let's try and balance those together and the social aspects and think about that when we're voting today, whether we can amend that, if there's room for adjustment, or whether we need to ask more questions before we vote for a 4-week consultation period. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Sims. Any further discussion of the item? Alderman Fraser.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. Yeah, look, I've always thought that that Prince of Wales Bay has huge unrealised potentially to become, similar to the Osborne shipyard in South Australia, a mini version, I should say, of the Osborne shipyard in South Australia, which is where our Collins-class submarines were manufactured and where our new Hunter-class frigates will be built starting next year. And Christopher Pyne managed to secure over $500 million for that shipyard, and that's created about 8,000 jobs. Great outcome for South Australia. This obviously is nowhere near as large in scale as that particular shipyard, but this master plan is really important because even though there have been several other strategies and plans before this over the last decade, this sort of gets down into a level of granular detail, which will, make it easier to lobby the federal government, particularly to secure some money. And of course, it looks like we'll have a federal election coming up within the next 6 to 9 months, and this really puts us in the box seat to be able to lobby federal politicians to get some investment down in that area, so that we can share in some of the jobs that have been, created in South Australia, potentially benefit from the industry that's been created there. We obviously have Incat, which is a world-class shipyard, which we're all very proud of, and there's a massive potential to participate, particularly in the naval industry, I suspect. Potential to become a marine precinct of national significance, and I hope that our federal politicians will come to the party when the election happens over the 6 to 9 months, so that we can get our share of the federal money. And I hope you're listening, Mr. Wilkie.
Thank you, Alderman Fraser. Any further discussion of the item? Alderman Dunsby.
Just a question for the director. The comments in the actual report say 4 weeks, yet the actual recommendation says approximately 4 weeks. So whilst we're talking about potentially looking at that, so probably just a little bit of an understanding of why the recommendation is not as succinct as the report, please.
Thank you, Alderman Dunsby. Dr. Fox.
Through you, Acting Mayor, and thank you for the question. We did want to have a little bit of wriggle room in there in terms of the report. 4 weeks is approximate. We recognise that there are all sorts of things that happen in life, and we didn't want to be derailed by something like COVID, for example, interfering with our public consultation period. So look, if absolutely we want to make sure we have adequate and robust public consultation. If we need to extend the period to do that, we will. We're also conscious, as Alderman Fraser mentioned, that we do have an election coming up in an unknown timeframe, and we would like to be as prepared as possible to be able to capitalise on any election commitments. So we're absolutely willing to adjust the public consultation process and the period depending on how well that goes and what we can do effectively. But we do want to get this thing in good shape for any election when it's called.
Thank you, Director. You preempted my next question, which was, obviously, until we get this actually adopted, it's not useful in our future negotiations to get it funded. So I'm mindful of that in our considerations of how we take this recommendation forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Dunsby. Any further discussion of the item? I'll speak very briefly to the item. I'm really pleased to hear from my fellow aldermen and their engagement and excitement for this master plan. I just note that also that it's an action that was identified in our economic development strategy, which we endorsed in February 2020. There's quite a number of significant actions in that economic development strategy, and that's the first economic development strategy that we've had as a council in 30 years. So it's great to see that we are progressing with the actions in our economic development strategy. And I note that we used some of the funding from the no interest loan that we got from the Tasmanian government through the economic stimulus funding that was provided in response to the COVID-19 pandemic last year to progress this project. So I'm really grateful that we've been able to get on with it. I think it will make a difference to the industry down there. And I know the consultation with the industry and the organisations around that precinct hasn't just been happening in response to the development of the master plan, but also through their engagement in the development of the economic development strategy and through the EPIC network group as well. So we've had some great engagement with our local industry and organisations through our economic development strategy, and I think it's something that our community is very grateful for and will really make a difference. So I'm happy to support the recommendations. Go back to the mover, Alderman Richardson.
Yes, thank you. I've been assured by that businesses have been assaulted in this, and so I'll go with the recommendation of 4 weeks consultation, and just rely on management to extend that if they feel it is necessary at the end of that 4 weeks. So nothing else to add. I'm happy to go to the vote.
Thank you, Alderman Richardson. Please raise your hand to indicate if you're for the recommendations. That is carried unanimously. Moving on to item 12, disposal by way of long-term lease of council land, part of 210 Tolosa Street, Glenorchy. We have recommendations for approval. Do I have someone to move those recommendations? Moved, Alderman Richardson. Someone to second? Alderman King. Thank you, Alderman Richardson.
Thank you. I am more than happy to support this recommendation. I see it as a win-win. It paves the way for Glenorchy Mountain Park project by relocating the shooting activities from the IAF range to the Mitchell range and improves amenity for the shooting fraternity. I believe negotiations are still happening with Taswater and Wellington Park, but it appears that Wellington Park Trust, it appears that that won't be a problem. It doesn't pose too much of a difficulty. This is pretty straightforward. There have been no objections received from the community to the proposed disposal of a 20-year lease to Southern Shooters. So I'm happy for the GM to progress this. So thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Richardson. Any further discussion of the item? Alderman Ball.
Thank you. I just noticed under the comments there about there was cultural and heritage. I just wanted to be assured there was nothing mentioned about anything heritage, and I don't think there would be, but I just wanted confirmation there is no heritage issues associated with this.
Thank you, Alderman Ball. Director Emilio Real.
Thank you. I might have to refer to our officer, Ali Coombe, who has been involved in the whole process. So if I could, hand this over to Ali to respond.
No problem. Ali, over to you.
Brilliant. Thanks. Through you, Acting Mayor. In regards to heritage, the site where the gun club already occupy, they've been there for quite some time. So this is an extension to their existing area, which actually was a previously disturbed site, and historically this whole area has had some history as use as a quarry. However, if any new works are required for, as part of the long-term lease and relocation, as it says in the report, it would be subject to going through a process if it's within Wellington Park through the Wellington Park Act, but also under the planning scheme. So to the best of our knowledge, there aren't any sites that would be disturbed, but any new works would go through the normal assessment process.
Thank you, Ali. Does that answer your question, Alderman Ball?
Yeah, does that affect anything with heritage though? That's what my question was.
Through you, Acting Mayor, no, it doesn't affect anything with heritage.
All right, thank you. Happy to proceed.
Any further discussion of the item? Alderman Fraser.
Yeah, thank you. Look, I'm happy to support the recommendation. Obviously, SSAA have been operating in the area for quite some time, and I think it's fair that the council provide them some security of tenure. Although I would say 20 years is certainly a very long time, and My question to whoever wants to answer it is, how will the lease be structured? Would it be a 10 plus 10 year lease? Would that be more appropriate given that this is so close to the urban fringe of our city?
Thank you, Alderman Fraser. Emilio or Ali or General Manager?
Through you, Acting Mayor. We didn't, I guess, delineate in the report that it could be 10 plus 10, but I think taking on board Alderman Fraser's feedback there, that's something definitely that we can do. The main thing, I guess, with some of these sporting clubs that are seeking longer term leases from council is partly about their financial viability as a club, and when they go out to plan ahead for obtaining funding agreements through the state government, an indication of a commitment to invest in those sites is important to them.
Through you, Acting Mayor, I was going to say the same thing. We've had this situation, and it's similar to the next report coming up on the agenda, that some of the people or clubs that are leasing land from council actually want to invest, but they want longer term tenure to invest their funds or build structures so they know that they're going to get their value for money out of that investment, knowing that they're secure in a long-term lease.
Thank you. To answer your question, Alderman Fraser?
Yes, I just think that the world is going to look very different in 20 years' time. Glenorchy City is going to look very different. I mean, it is a substantial period of time, and a shooting range so close to the city like that. You don't know how the urban fringe will expand or want to expand over that time also. So I just thought maybe a 10 plus 10 might give both parties some more flexibility potentially. And I would have thought that 10 years was enough, a long enough tenure to be able to gain funding to build facilities, etc.
Thank you, Alderman Fraser.
More a comment than a question. Yeah, thank you.
So, Alderman Dunsby.
Just almost a procedural thing through you, Acting Mayor. I noticed that the reference to SSAA rather than the full name is actually in the recommendation. And I think in going forward, I think it'd be good to have the full name of the organisation spelt out in these resolutions, that they'll be there in perpetuity forever. I'm just wondering, yes, we'd see it in the report, but it's mainly the recommendation that will be there. So I'm just wondering, with the indulgence of the mover and the seconder, if we could actually have the full name spelled out in point 1 and 2 in the recommendation, just for some good clarity. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Dunsby. Alderman Richardson and Alderman King, would you be happy with that?
Yep, no, I'm happy with that.
Yeah, it makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you. We will make sure that that is included in the minutes. Alderman Sims.
Through you, the Acting Mayor. Look, I just wanted to note, I appreciate the comments. That makes a lot of sense around the funding and ensuring that this community group gets a fair go as well if they sign on and set up in this spot. It looks like a bit of a transition plan too that's a little less risky and a bit more responsible from what we've had in the past, which is a step in the right direction. But I also just wanted to note the comments just around, we want to make sure it's secure for them. I think it is important we balance their security, but with our security as well. We want to make sure that we're secure as a council and our community are safe and secure as well. So it is important to note their needs around that and getting funding for builds and things like that. But it is important too that when we're looking at some of the state and local priorities around urban renewal, and those comments that Alderman Fraser made, I think are very warranted around urban renewal and gentrification building up and having more people moving around, especially when we're planning that site to be a recreational site where there's going to be mountain bikes going through, you know, people are going to be wild and free range around that area. And that's what we want to a degree. We're trying to promote that and foster that. So that kind of, to me, urban renewal, healthy wellbeing areas that people are going to be moving around widely, and gun ranges don't seem to go in the same sentence. It seems to be quite odd. So I just want people to think about that a bit more deeply. And perhaps if we're looking at this lease or rent, I think the word dispose is a strong word for the arrangement we've got at the moment, but I do understand under the section that that's what we need to title it as. But I'm just thinking about maybe can we negotiate that lease to be maybe 15 years then, where it gives them a bit more clout to get those builds up and the things they need, but also gives us 5 years, or maybe some clauses within that. And you know, I might be, you know, I'm not a specialist in this area, so I would need to take it and advice from our officers and other people around whether that's an option, to be a bit more flexible around that lease, and if there's an option to have clauses in there that if we do need to back out because of the right reasons, that we do it for the right reasons, and they're noted in there, whether we can explore that as well.
Thank you, Alderman Sims. Alderman King.
Thanks, Acting Mayor. Look, the gun club as it is situated, the way I see it, between two parks, Wellington Park and Tolosa Park, and urban growth around that area I don't think's going to affect it ever, because it's jammed between the two parks, and it's been there for some time. It's used by a lot of people. It's responsibly used. There is some noise from it occasionally, without a doubt, but I think it's an effective lease, and I think it's an appropriate lease, and it's a way of moving forward. So,
thank you, Alderman King. Any further discussion of the item? If not, I'll go back to the mover, Alderman Richardson.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. Yes, funding to improve amenities has to be done externally, and so it's understandable that a long-term lease would be sought. Council have been working closely with SSA, so to secure funding for amenities, they would need. It's understandable that they would need that time. So I'm happy to still support the 20 years. So yes, I'm happy to go to the vote with that.
Thank you, Alderman Richardson. Please raise your hand to indicate if you are for the motion. That is carried unanimously. Moving on to item 13 on our agenda, Lutana Waste Transfer Station lease extension. We have 5 recommendations for approval before us. Do I have someone to move these recommendations? Moved, Alderman Richardson. Thank you, Alderman Richardson. Someone to second? Alderman Ball. Alderman Richardson.
Yes, thank you. I understand the current lease expires October 23, and Southern Waste Solutions have requested a 5-year extension with an option for a 5 years, taking them through to 2033. A review of the lease has been done, and negotiations continue with Hobart City Council as they are joint owners of the property, and they're supportive of the proposed lease extension. So to facilitate the approval of the lease in conjunction with Hobart Council, I'm happy to run the 178 process and authorise the GM to proceed with the disposal on the understanding that any objections received to the proposal will be reported back to Council. So thanks, Acting Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman Richardson. Any further discussion of the item? Alderman Fraser.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. Yes, I support these recommendations as well, and I particularly endorse the partnership approach being taken here with Hobart City Council. I think it's an example of how these two organisations can work together successfully. And I'd like to see more of it, quite frankly. I'd like to see more resource sharing, and that, particularly with machinery and equipment used for civil works, IT, administrative functions, even human resources. I think there's huge untapped potential for both of the organisations to work together in just the way that's been demonstrated here. I think that is the pathway towards a more financially sustainable council. So I'm very happy to endorse this approach.
Thank you, Alderman Fraser. Any further discussion of the item? If not, I go back to the mover, Alderman Richardson.
Thank you. No, nothing else to add.
Thank you. I'll put it to the vote. Please raise your hand to indicate if you're for the recommendations. Please carried unanimously. Moving on to item 14, delegations for senior planning staff. We have 2 recommendations in relation to this item. Do I have someone to move those recommendations, please? Moved Alderman Dunsby, seconded. Alderman Richardson. Thank you, Alderman Dunsby.
Thank you. It seems fairly straightforward to me that we need to actually delegate these functions to be able to carry out the roles that are required for council. And it's been well spelt out for us in the report there and what those delegation levels are and why they've been brought in. It's just an updated situation that we're finding ourselves in. So I'll be happy to support the recommendation.
Thank you, Alderman Dunsby. Any further discussion of the item? Alderman Sims.
Yes, just through you, the Acting Mayor. Look, I just think just because you can doesn't mean you should. I think we have an issue at the moment with transparency around planning. The community aren't happy with the way the outcomes from that at the moment. I don't blame them. I think that's a sector-wide issue and gripe that people are struggling to have a say in planning or understand what's going on in planning. I think that's a fair gripe to have, considering in the planning authority how complex it is from our point of view and some of the back and forth around that as well. So it's a difficult subject matter, and I think we require more transparency around it. I understand that we're now provided with the opportunity for this. The tight timeframes is 28 days, but I think 28 days is, as soon as you find out, you can pop it on the agenda of the next meeting, and that can be then considered by the entire planning authority, and then it's on the public record also and prompted by the community. So I'm not satisfied at the moment with this amendment and permit. I understand the tight timeframes, but the reason around it's not considered appropriate that the general manager be given the power to issue planning approvals, I'm not sure then it's appropriate for the general manager to delegate that to our staff. So I'm not comfortable with this report at the moment in the current format that it's in. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Sims. Any further discussion of the item? Alderman Richardson.
Thank you. I just want to clarify that this comes about by an amendment by Lupa to the legislation and the introduction of a 28 timeframe to respond to applications for minor amendments to already existing permits. We have been assured that these are lower level discretionary functions. The introduction of delegation to senior planning officers will facilitate that 28-day turnaround and clarify confusion over delegated authority under section 56, 57 and 58. So I'm happy to support this recommendation.
Thank you, Alderman Richardson. Any further discussion of the item? Alderman Fraser.
Yeah, look, I too support the recommendation. I guess from the perspective of the public, the concern here is whether this delegation in any way makes the planning process less transparent. From my reading, it doesn't. The public still have access to all of the approvals made under section 56. I mean, obviously it does place more power in the hands of unelected council officers. That is the reality. However, we do, council aldermen do delegate many powers to the GM, and the GM also subdelegates, I suppose, other powers to his staff. That's routine practice in councils all over the state, and the reality is that even as members of the planning authority, which we have permanent members and proxy members, we are still all very heavily reliant on the expertise of our planning officers and their recommendations anyway, because to my knowledge, none of us are planning subject matter experts. So it's certainly not going to water down the standards applied to planning. And what it will do is it will streamline the planning approvals process and make it all less onerous for everyone concerned, which I think is the main point of this delegation.
Thank you, Alderman Fraser. Any further discussion of the item? Do you have a question, Alderman?
I do. I have a question. It doesn't just mean minor amendments. It's also refusals, isn't it?
Dr. Fox, would you like to respond to that question, please?
Yes, that's correct. Thank you, Acting Mayor and Alderman Sims. That's correct. So it's now introduced the 28-day timeframe for assessment, as well as the ability to refuse those Section 56 applications.
Thank you.
Any further discussion of the item? Alderman Fraser, do you have...
I had just a question pop into my head following on from that train of thought, but people will still have a right of appeal. Is that correct, Director of Planning?
Yes, Alderman Fraser, that is correct. And absolutely, those who lodge a representation are able to appeal that decision and will be notified of that decision to enable that to occur.
Thank you. Alderman Dunsby.
Just another question, if I may, through to the Director. Has there been any discussions sector-wise on the impact of this 28-day timeframe for assessment and how it may affect all councils? Or this is just a decision that we're facing? Has there been any comments sector-wide?
Through you, Acting Mayor, and thank you for the question, Alderman Dunsby. It's a really good one. Look, it did come a little bit out of the blue for councils, and we are, while we do absolutely understand the want of the state government to streamline and speed up these very minor assessment of these very minor amendments, and we totally understand that it has placed an additional burden on our staff. And as you know, our planning staff are exceptionally busy at the moment, and so this 28-day timeframe has come as a bit of a extra thing that we need to do. We have reached out and contacted other councils to see how they're approaching this, and much as we are, they're looking for those delegations to try and streamline those processes internally to make sure that we can meet this 28-day timeframe.
Thank you.
Any further discussion of the item? I'd like to speak in support of the item. I can quite clearly see the rationale for the reason to approve these delegations here tonight. I think, as Dr. Fox has mentioned, that part of the rationale is around the agenda to enable people who are undertaking developments to get on with it and reduce red tape. It's quite clear that our planning area is very stretched and works really hard to meet the timeframes that are prescribed under the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act, and our planning officers are very thorough and detailed in their assessment of any applications that we get. Any of us who have participated in the Glenorchy Planning Authority meetings will see that the reports we receive are very thorough, and certainly the activities of planning staff where they do have delegation, I have complete faith, are equally as thorough. I also note that the delegations, as outlined in that table, do say, for example, Section 56, 1A and 2, the power to amend or refuse to amend a permit unless the proposed amendment relates to an aspect of the use or development which was the subject of or imposed a result of representations. So there is still that, I guess, level of transparency there where representations have been made. And there are other references to the need for matters to come to GPA where representations are made. So where members of the community have noted concern with an application, there most definitely is the requirement that comes to us as a planning authority. So I'm comfortable to approve the recommendations, and I do note the significant effort of our planning team in making sure that we as a council do uphold our requirements strictly in accordance with the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act and the requirements that are imposed on councils by state government in order to enable people to undertake minor and major developments in our city. We'll go back to the mover. Oh, Alderman Ball.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. Just perhaps a question to the Director. With the increased haste to get these approvals within this time, does she envisage that sort of pressure would mean that they would need to look at additional staff?
Thank you for the question, Alderman Ball. Look, these are, as we've said a few times, these are fairly minor amendments. We think we get about 2 or 3 of these a month that will come in under this 28-day time frame. So while I'd love to say yes, we need extra staff and we need some extra funding, I don't think it will create an extra burden in that way.
Thank you.
Alderman Sims, you have a question? Oh, you're on mute.
Apologies for that. Just in regards, in follow-up of your statement there around being prompted by submissions and representations from the community, I'm not sure that actually captures everything that we should be assessing. We shouldn't be waiting or relying on the community to provide a representation to prompt us at GPA. It is a delegation by LUPA that's been delegated to the planning authority, and some councils may be choosing to delegate that. But I'm just wondering, is that what we're relying on the trigger of, the representations?
Dr. Fox?
Thank you, Alderman Sims, for the question, and through you, Acting Mayor. No, absolutely, it's not just around representations. As you know, for any application that comes forward in the planning space, our council officers do an amazing job of undertaking assessments of the issues related to those applications and ensuring that any decision that's made is fully referencing their concerns and the requirements under LUPA to assess. So no, sorry if I made it seem like it's just about the representations. Absolutely not. These are assessed as for every planning application on the merits of the application against the planning legislation.
No, you didn't.
Thank you.
Director Fox, apologies. I wasn't referring to your comment. It was the Acting Mayor's comment around representations and triggering and prompting us to reassess. I was just a bit confused around that, but you've made sense and clarified that. Thanks.
Thank you, Alderman Sims. Go back to the mover, Alderman Dunsby.
Nothing further, thank you.
I'll put it to the vote. Please raise your hand to indicate if you're for the recommendations. That is Alderman Dunsby, Alderman Ball, Alderman Fraser, Alderman King, Alderman Richardson and Alderman Beck-Thomas. Please raise your hand to indicate if you're against the motion. That is Alderman Sims. The motion is carried. Moving on to item 16. Oh, hang on. Sorry, 15. Financial Performance Report to 31st of May 2021. Do I have someone to move this recommendation, please?
So
Alderman
moved.
Fraser. Thank you, Alderman Fraser. Someone to second? Alderman Dunsby. Alderman Fraser.
Well, firstly, the good news is that this report is up to the 31st of May. So that's 1 month remaining in the financial year. And at that point, when this report was produced, the council was $3 million better than the budgeted position, which is great news. And the projection is that by the 30th of June, which is only a few days away, will be $1.8 million better than the budget. It's still a deficit, mind you, but much better than the projected deficit of 7.59 million. That is good news. The bad news, unfortunately, is that this is largely the result of increased revenue from sources that are primarily one-off in nature. So, and the other piece of bad news attached to that is that some of those sources have no ongoing revenue benefit beyond this financial year and may in fact have expenditure obligations that will put further pressure on future budgets. So again, highlights the precarious I guess the precarious position of the council's budget at this point. I do have a few questions, if I may. So under revenue, I do notice that the favourable result of, we have a favourable result of 2.29 million or 4.2% against the budget. I just wanted to clarify that what proportion of that is in fact the revenue of a one-off nature. If someone could clarify that for me.
Thank you. General Manager.
Mayor, I refer these questions to the CFO.
Thank you. Tina.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. Yes, through you, Acting Mayor. As Alderman Fraser, in relation to the query around ongoing revenue sources, just on $1 million worth of that would be what we would consider ongoing untied revenue. So revenue that doesn't have any expenditure commitment attached to it. The bulk of that being in relation to our additional 0.5% of activity in the rates area that we have received. And we do anticipate that a proportion of the increased activity in our building and planning area will be ongoing for at least part of next financial year, if not early into the following financial year. There are proportions, obviously, that, as you've mentioned quite correctly, are one-off. So we've received money, for example, to fund the Glenorchy Jobs Hub. That's a grant that we've received, and that obviously has expenditure attached to it. And similarly, the one-off unexpected revenue from Taswater, just over $500,000, whilst it has no expenditure attached to it, it is not over and above our normal distribution from as an owner of Taswater.
Thank you. While I've got you there, further questions, Acting Mayor, if I may. The section on donated assets has a lovely ring to it, doesn't it, when people read that, donated assets? But the reality is, of course, that council assets are not really assets in the traditional commercial sense, because they don't really provide an income, and in fact need to be maintained and depreciated. A question, I'm not sure who, perhaps the GM is the best person to answer this, but is there a precedent where, and I do note that most of the donated assets come from new subdivisions where the council takes over ownership of, I guess I'm assuming they're public spaces, public areas, etc. Is there any precedent where the maintenance and ownership of those assets is in fact held within the subdivision, in some sort of communal, held in common, I suppose? Is that a practice anywhere in Tasmania or Australia?
Through you, Acting Mayor, not to my knowledge, Alderman Fraser. I have heard of it happening in other places, other countries, but the legislation here provides that when a road in a subdivision or a stormwater pipe, when council effectively requires the subdivider to construct the subdivision and put those infrastructure items in, and then they are put on a maintenance period, and then once the title is created, essentially they become council assets to be maintained in perpetuity, and that's pretty much how we've picked up those assets across the city. So I'd have to do some further work on that to identify whether there was any scope to do that. Certainly with things like water sensitive urban design measures, we do put in place Part 5 agreements with subdividers requiring them to continue to maintain those water sensitive urban design features. However, in general terms, the subdivision assets become council property effectively, and as you say, we have to depreciate and maintain them going forward.
Okay, thank you. A final comment, if I may, Acting Mayor. In conclusion, in regards to the capital works program, we are at 61% of the capital works budget for this financial year. It will be interesting to see how much of that is completed. I suspect there will be some of the capital works. In fact, I think it mentions here that some of the capital works budget is held over to or transferred over to the next financial year. But I think this is another testament to the huge difficulty that governments, both state and local, are having in getting capital expenditure out the door. It's a massive problem, and given that we have another record capital works budget set for the next financial year, 25 million, if I remember correctly, I do question how realistic that is. you know, my suspicion is it will have another revision down part way through the financial year, which is I think what we did in this financial year. But I guess we'll have to wait and see. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Fraser. Any further discussion of the item? I might have just have a question to follow on from Alderman Fraser's comments in relation to the capital works expenditure. This is something that we tend to have quite a discussion about every year around this time and throughout the year, in fact. I just went on my reading of the report. I also noted that 61% of the revised annual budget of 17.6 million had been expended to date. But I did also note there that transport and stormwater programs are forecast to be completed to 96% of the allocated program, and the property program is forecast to deliver 96% of its revised projects. So I thought those figures were quite high, given the difficulties that have been facing us and other organisations as a result of COVID. So I'm just wondering if, Director, you could explain where that gap is coming from. I do note there are supply issues with new vehicle availability, meaning 6 of the planned 10 vehicle purchases will not be delivered. So is that where the main gap is coming from?
Thank you, Acting Mayor, and through you. So the Roads and Stormwater Capital Works Program is the renewal-based renewal and upgrade based capital works program. So we will actually finish the majority of those works this financial year, and same with a lot of the standard property projects. But where we are struggling is grant funded projects. So there is a delay on getting the grant funded projects started, and they were projected to be undertaken or started this financial year with a certain amount of expenditure. And plant and equipment, we are finding it very difficult to actually purchase any plant and equipment at the moment, particularly even just utility vehicles. There's just, you know, people are ordering 12 months in advance at the moment because supply is very difficult. So I think you'll find a lot of it is around the grant funded projects where the delays are, hence the reason they are going to be carried over into next financial year.
Thank you, Director. Alderman Fraser.
Just another question for the Director of Infrastructure and Works. Although, you know, is that delay in new equipment likely to further delay the Council's capital works program? Are they critical pieces of equipment, or can you manage without them?
Through you, Mayor, we are extending the life of some of the existing pieces of equipment, so we're hanging on to them, as many are at the moment. And if need be, we can hire in some equipment, but at the moment it's not actually causing us any delays or any problems into the near future.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion of the item? Just further to my question, I guess, Director, can you just clarify with the delays to those grant funded projects, where Council is at with those, given they, you know, in particular the playgrounds were of significant interest to our community, and some of the sporting facility projects that outline, in simple terms, the reasons for that and how we're progressing.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. The playground projects, we did find that we went out to tender, and the amounts that we've actually got through the grants is not sufficient to actually complete both of the playgrounds. We went back to the tenderers to see if there was an opportunity to change the scope, not necessarily to reduce the playground experience itself, but to actually see if there was a better way of doing things. We only received a breakdown of that late last week, on Friday actually, and I haven't actually been through that to see if there's an opportunity to work with them to still deliver the two. However, it's a fairly big gap to find, but that's something that we are actually working through at the moment. So we should have some news back to Council in the next week or so. Just an update on some of the other grant funded projects, the football, the soccer facilities that we've received grant funding for. We are still waiting on a final agreement from the federal government to confirm some of the breakdown of the projects. They actually requested some more information on the size of the project, square meterages, number of spectators. We've sent that information back pretty much the same day we received that information. So we're still waiting on that final agreement to come back so it can be signed off by the General Manager.
Thank you, Director. Alderman Fraser.
So just to clarify, the council has not received any of that federal grant money yet, Director, is that correct? Is that in our bank accounts or not?
Through you, Acting Mayor, we haven't received any of that funding at the moment. So how those funds work is that once we get approval, we actually start the project and expend our own funds till we reach a certain milestone. Then we actually invoice the federal government. They actually pay us that amount. Then we move on to the next stage, expend more of the funds, and then they reimburse us for the funds that are spent. So at this stage, we haven't received any money in our bank account.
And I might add, that is despite the fact that council has started expending money on these projects, correct?
Through you, Acting Mayor, we have certainly spent money on planning and the preliminaries for the project, and certainly a lot of man hours in actually getting these projects to a point where we're ready to hit the ground running as soon as we get that final sign off.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Director. Any further discussion of the item? I'll go back to the mover, Alderman Fraser.
No, nothing further from me. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. We'll go to the vote. The recommendation that we receive and note the financial performance report for year to date. Please raise your hand to indicate if you're for. Carried unanimously. Moving on to item 16, procurement and contracts monthly report. We have a recommendation to receive and note this report. Do I have someone to move the recommendation? Alderman Ball, someone to second? Alderman King, Alderman Ball. Oh, you're on mute.
Thank you. Sorry, I will just open it to the floor for any questions. I'm in support of the small legal bill that's there. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Ball. Any further discussion of the item? Anything further to add, Alderman Ball?
Nothing else, thanks. Put it to the vote.
To the vote, please raise your hand to indicate if you're for the recommendation. That is carried unanimously. Item 17 on our agenda, notice of motion, questions on notice and without notice. We have an answer to a question on notice about the North from Alderman Dunsby in December 2021 in relation to the Northgate entrance taxi bay, where Alderman Dunsby asked about whether council could consider making this parking bay multi-purpose for people with mobility issues, and a response has been provided which has enabled that parking spot to be changed to have a time limit of 5 minutes, allowing it to be used as a drop-off and pick-up spot, and still allowing maxi taxis the ability to drop off and pick up as well. And another question. Oh, sorry.
You said December 21.
Oh, sorry. Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Oh,
I'm not that good at going ahead of time. Yes. So that the item there should read 2020. Sorry, not 2021. And we have another question on notice from Alderman Dunsby in relation to the cost of the by-election to Glenorchy City Council, and we are yet to be advised by the Tasmanian Electoral Commission. Have any further notice of motion or questions on notice or without notice? Alderman Sims.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. Just through you, I have a question without notice. It might be two. Firstly, I'm not sure who will be the best person, maybe directed to the GM to begin with, and he can refer if need be to the relevant officer. Does our council provide residents with on-street residential parking permits in council limited areas?
Thank you, Alderman Sims. Director, would you like to take that or defer to Director David Ronaldson?
Thank you, Acting Mayor. Through you, Acting Mayor, at the moment, Council does not have a process to do as Alderman Sims has requested. And that was confirmed via the most recent Council's parking strategy, which apologies, but it was passed a couple of years ago, 2016, 2017, around there. So the answer is not at this time.
Okay. That will lead me into my second question then. And you might want to take this on notice, I think. I'm just wondering what the barriers are to exploring this policy or model within our council precinct.
Thank you, Alderman Sims.
If that's okay, I will take that on notice to give a full answer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions on without notice? No? Okay. Well, that concludes the open part of our meeting. Do I have someone to move that we go to closed council? Alderman King, someone a second. Alderman Ball. Alderman King, put the motion to the vote. Please raise your hand to indicate if you're for. That is carried. Thank you very much to members of the public for joining us via Facebook this evening. As I said at the start of the meeting this evening, we will be pleased to welcome members of the public back to our next council meeting on Monday, the 26th of July, here in our reconfigured council chambers. There will be a booking system put in place because we will be limited with numbers. So keep an eye out for further communication on what that process will look like. Take care, stay safe, stay warm, and we'll see you next time.